I never imagined that the young guy who helped me figure out my new coffee machine would later step into my home, only for me to realize I'd left a few, very personal things lying right there on the couch. Some childhood keepsakes, and let's just say a few garments that weren't meant for company. That moment changed everything. I was used to being alone, just wanted to upgrade my mornings with a decent cup of coffee. I didn't expect that the store assistant would lead me into something far more complex than caffeine. Who would have thought a shy, inexperienced young man would show up in my life and turn it completely upside down? Let me rewind a bit and start from the beginning. I'm 35, divorced for 5 years, living quietly until that day shook everything loose. Living alone has its own rhythm. Naturally, I had my private routines and personal things, items meant only for me. I used them so regularly, I stopped noticing them. Some were left right there in the middle of my living room. It wasn't intentional. Maybe it was just habit, or maybe it was my quiet way of filling the silence that hung around the house. That morning felt ordinary like every other. I was just planning to pick up a coffee machine and enjoy a better cup of brew. Nothing more. But then he came along. Jake, the young guy from the store, offered to help carry the box. And without thinking twice, I let him step inside. What I didn't know was that letting him in would change far more than just my coffee routine. It's strange how quickly an average day can twist into something unforgettable. Ethan was 24, bright-eyed, full of energy, and carrying that shiny new coffee machine into my home like it was a gift. As he stepped inside, I noticed how his eyes casually swept the room, taking in the space, the mood, the clutter. Then his gaze paused. Right there on the couch, my childhood keepsakes, and a few personal garments I'd completely forgotten were out in the open. They'd been part of my daily scenery for so long, I no longer really saw them. But he did. Ethan gave a small, amused smile and stepped closer into the living room. His voice was light when he said, "You live alone, don't you?" There was something playful in his tone, curious, but not judgmental. Just open. And in that moment, everything started to feel different. The look in his eyes made my cheeks burn. It hit me all at once, unexpected and painfully awkward. This wasn't how today was supposed to go. He was only here to set up a coffee maker. Nothing more. I never let anyone see this part of my life. Not the loneliness. Not the little things that made the silence more bearable. That part of me stayed hidden, until now. I managed a shaky laugh, brushing a strand of hair behind my ear, and said, "Ethan, can we just pretend you didn't see any of that?" My voice wavered, just enough to betray how unsettled I felt. For a moment, I thought I'd completely ruined the lightness of the day. But he just smiled, gently, kindly. "Sure," he said with a soft nod. "But you know, sometimes, these things say more about us than we realize." He wasn't mocking me. There was no judgment, just something honest and oddly comforting in his tone. Ethan's eyes shifted, catching the light in a way that made them seem suddenly deeper, warmer. "We all have our needs," he said softly. "But sometimes, these little things just don't quite fill the space, do they?" There was a subtle edge to his voice, gentle, but meaningful. The kind of tone that lingers, asking more than just the surface-level question. I felt it, the way his words landed. Not just heard, but felt. It wasn't just about the items on the couch anymore. He was speaking to something quieter inside me, something I hadn't even said out loud. Our eyes met, just for a few seconds. But in that moment, everything stilled. There was a current between us, unspoken, undeniable. A pull I hadn't expected. His gaze stayed on me, steady and kind, but there was something else there too. Something warmer. Closer. And with every word, every glance, we were inching toward something I hadn't let myself imagine in a long time. There was something about his words that reached right through me, as if he'd touched something I didn't even know was exposed. That's when I realized what I was feeling wasn't just passing curiosity. It was something else entirely. Ethan's voice softened even more as he said, "I felt it when you first walked into the store. There was something about you. I don't know what it was, but it hit me." His eyes held that same quiet spark, warm, but now unmistakably sincere. I hesitated, unsure how to answer. My thoughts were a mess, tangled between logic and something I didn't want to admit out loud. But then I smiled, just slightly. "You stirred something in me too. I said gently. Otherwise, I would have never let a stranger carry a coffee machine into my home. I tried to keep it light, but inside I already knew this wasn't just a passing connection. It ran deeper. Somehow, Ethan had quietly worked his way under my skin, and I wasn't sure I wanted him to leave. Something about him had settled into me without warning, his voice, his energy, even the way he carried himself. Ethan wasn't trying too hard. That was the thing. He was just him, and somehow, that made everything harder to ignore. My thoughts were spinning, and I could feel my eyes giving me away. I tried to blink it off to reset, but the warmth in the room only seemed to grow heavier. A beat of silence passed between us before I finally spoke, grasping for something to say. Anything to cut the tension. "I've been in this outfit all day," I said with a light, nervous laugh, tugging at the edge of my blouse. "It's clinging to me like a second skin. I think I'm going to change into something more comfortable." I motioned slightly toward the hallway. "Make yourself at home, all right." Ethan didn't say anything right away. He just looked at me, longer than I expected. Not in a way that made me uncomfortable, but in a way that made it nearly impossible to look away. I tried. I really did, but my gaze kept finding his again and again. The air between us was starting to shift, and with every breath, it felt like the space separating us was beginning to vanish.